Sit right down and I'll show you where my dreams began.
We're just excited that you're joining us in this very special house called Food is Religion. We are now 7,900 members strong around the world. And we talk about food, we talk about culinary arts, we talk about lots of things around food, but also about culture. And today I'm really excited to host this talk show. I host it once a month. And then we have this talk show every month on Sundays. We have incredible conversations. I want to welcome a very special guest. I met Diem at a meetup, a networking meetup in Seattle, and she really connected. She was one of the first people I met at the meetup, and she has this amazing charisma, passion, positivity. She has an exciting business that she has been working on for a while, and she is the founder of Litibu Collective, which is essentially a cultural and a culinary and an artistic experience of Litibu Collective. And this is Diem Nguyen. Diem, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks for the nice introduction, Michael.
Very excited to have you with us in our Food is Religion house. I wanted to start out with kind of taking a deep dive and if you could walk us through what it was like growing up in your family.
My parents are refugees from Vietnam. They came over when they were late teens, early 20s. Growing up, I always knew that things were different. We were in a one-bedroom apartment. And I didn't feel, there are 5 of us in a one-bedroom apartment. And I didn't feel poor because we lived on top of a hill and I got the view of Mount Rainier in Tacoma. And so I thought it was really beautiful. I got to see rainbows, which were my favorite thing. But I knew that I had to work harder, or my parents told me that I had to work harder to prove myself. So I had that message in my head before I even started school. I knew that food was really special. Like we were told that we had to eat everything because food was really special and you couldn't waste it.
What made it special for you?
I think for them, maybe it was really special because it was scarce when they were growing up.
Okay.
And so we had that mindset. And then as we got older, we had to be mindful of not overeating.
Oh, okay.
And there's this phrase that in Vietnamese is "ăn cho vui," means eat for fun. And we're very much of a culture that eats for fun.
Yeah, I come from an Irish culture, so there's a lot of drinking and not necessarily fantastic food. There's good food, but it's not like I crave other cultures' foods. You know, I crave Vietnamese, I crave Chinese, Japanese, and lots of Asian foods. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there they drink for fun. I was in Ireland for years. And so they were very, it was like your neighborhood pub that you went to, where they went to.
And there was always a celebration, I'm sure.
There's always a celebration, or just like a game they had to watch celebrating the game.
Were there any foods that you were connected to at an early age, would you say?
I think all soups. Anything that has broth, anything that had noodle. It was just so comforting. It was like a comfort food. And
any
you know
favorites?
How I have Bún Bò Huế and Bún Riêu. It's like Bún Bò Huế is like a spicy beef soup. And then Bún Riêu is a seafood soup. Yeah, and I like it from my mom.
Wow. So is this like shrimp and scallops and
So
clams,
the Bún Riêu you can have shrimp, you have egg, you have tomato. We put shrimp paste in it, which some people don't like because they think it's too overpowering, but I like it.
Wow.
Have you had shrimp paste?
I have, and I do like it actually. Yeah,
do you know people who don't like it?
Oh, sure. Or maybe they've actually never tried it, right? So, you know.
Because it's a powerful taste.
Yeah, I love lots of different foods. My biggest challenge is spicy food. I have to kind of steer clear of some of that. But
you enjoy it, but you can't have it?
Yeah. I love flavor. I love unique flavors, you know, and so experiment a lot with different flavors, both out to eat and cooking. There's so many different flavors in the world. I just love learning about different cuisines and different flavors too. What did you grow up eating? And the soups, that's really fascinating. Any desserts at all?
We have this thing called jam. Have you had it?
Okay.
Do
I
you know
have
what it is?
not. Nope, I
Jam.
have not.
Ooh, there's a, okay. I want to take you to these things.
All right. I love it. We all
Jam.
love it.
Jam is like, it comes in a cup. So like a pint glass. And inside are like jellies and coconut milk, and you can have beans in it. So all sorts of combination. Jackfruit.
I don't think I've ever had jackfruit. I've always been curious about it.
I'm allergic to jackfruit. It makes my mouth itch. And I
You
still
still
like
like
it.
it.
I just have to monitor how much I eat.
I got it.
The same with my dad. He
So
still likes it. He still tries to eat it.
yeah, so in your family, you were surrounded by food. You enjoyed food, and there's some people I talked to that didn't growing up. I remember Jody when we interviewed. She is in the outback in Queensland, Australia. I mentioned her to you a while back, but she is a rancher, right, in the middle of nowhere, like in the outback, and she grew up without house. She grew up like her dad was building fences for large ranches. So they moved around a lot, but they camped basically. So food was a necessity. It wasn't, anything they really enjoyed that much. And then she had never had TV. And I remember the story. It was so beautiful. It was like when she got connected to cable for the first time, probably teenager. I think she was a teenager, but
Yeah, she had the Food Network channel. Was that what it
she
was?
got obsessed by the Food Network.
Yeah, I heard her. I heard her talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Jody is that when she interviewed, she was interviewing outside because apparently they have Wi-Fi outside, and there were like wild animals making all kinds of sounds. Like she said, "Oh, that's a wild dingo," and that's a I forget what kind of bird it was, but we had some really interesting conversations because of that. But everybody has a different experience with food at a young age is what I really wanted to say. And hers was very all about scarcity, and to eat to survive. But then later on, she blossomed with food and she became a baker and she's super passionate about it. I met her on Clubhouse as well. So, but anyway, getting back to it. So as we go along, you're growing up as a child around food. Then what did you love to do as a kid? Would you say? What kind of things were you into?
They always have that question in school, like, what's your favorite hobby?
Uh-huh.
And I never had like a go-to answer. I always put what I was doing at the time. But then I realized later on, exploring is a hobby. So I
Okay.
always put exploring. I love exploring. I love learning. And I think that's what happened to, that's how I had this such as the wanderlust. So after high school, I did really good in school. People expected me to go to college, and I didn't want to go to college because I just felt there's so much to see. And so I actually applied to one school, and I got an extension because I missed the deadline. And then I applied, I got in, and I went. And the reason is because I was like, I'm 18. What am I really going to do? Like, how am I going to really make money? Like, why? I'm just going to go to school. I'm just going to go for a quarter. I'll see. And so I went for a quarter, and then I'm like, I'll go for another quarter. And I actually kept doing that every quarter for 4 years, and I finished college. And then after that, I did the regular path of corporate, and I did that for just a few months. And then I realized I just felt in school, I was investing in myself and I was learning, and the world became richer and richer. Because the more I learned, the more connections I was able to make. Connections with like meaning.
Right.
I see something and I see so much meaning in it because I had so much background knowledge. But then once I start working corporate, it was just a lot of routine for me. At least in that role, it was a lot of routine. I stuck it out for a year. And then I quit. And then that's when I started having my adventures. I'm still very close to my family, though. And so I do come back. So I spend about months with my family, especially during the summer, because Seattle is so nice.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but then winter, spring, I'm gone.
Wow.
Fall. And so I like to go for months at a time. Because when I'm at a place, if I feel like it takes me 3 week minimum to start to feel like a connection with the place where it's beyond sightseeing, is like I understand, just start to understand people's like lifestyle or values or priorities. And I find that part so fascinating. Like the unspoken part, so fascinating. I feel like, and
Really?
then beyond that, people's stories, they don't tell you their stories or the deeper layers of their stories until later.
Not
Like if
right
you have
away,
a
yeah.
neighbor or like a vendor that you walk by and buy stuff from all the time, like a fruit vendor,
Okay.
Or, like tacos, like Carlos' mom sells tacos until she runs out, and usually that's 11 in the morning.
Okay. Yeah, I think it takes a while to get to know people before they share their stories. But as a podcaster, for me, I'm able to cultivate those because I always try to set a space of comfort and relaxation when we interview. And sometimes I know people ahead of time and sometimes I don't. I do think that you're right. You have to be in a place for a little bit to get to know people, to hear their stories. Where have you traveled? Let's dive into that, because I know that you love to explore and connect to different cultures.
Where I don't think I've been to as many places as people think I have. I've
Okay.
been to them long and repeatedly. Like
Okay.
you were talking about how you grew up Irish, and I've been to Ireland a lot. I actually
Wow.
was in a
I've never been to Ireland.
I was in a long-term relationship with somebody I met in Dublin. I met him on a train. I met him, and then I went to England, and then I went to Austria.
Oh, wow.
And that trip I was with my brother. So those were shorter trips or shorter visits. And then I came back to Ireland to get to know this person better. And then I started dating him. So I went to Ireland a lot.
Wow.
And beyond that, I feel like I get this desire to go to Europe. So I'll go to Europe for a few years, and then I'll go to Latin America for a few years. So I haven't been to Asia in a while, and I think that's where I'm going to go back to. And
But you've been to Latin America as well?
Yeah, so my last trip was earlier this year. I was in Peru.
Oh.
And I stayed until my visa ended. My visa was going to end the next day, so I had to leave. I tried to extend it, but I couldn't. So I had to leave.
What part of Peru? Because my wife and I actually went to Peru as well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I went to Lima.
Oh, yeah.
I stayed in Lima mostly, and I stayed with this couple. My parents' age, so it's really nice. I call them my mom and dad, and I had dinner with them every day, and I just like have so much love for them. I really do feel like they're like my Peruvian mom and dad.
That's amazing. The Peruvian culture is so interesting. So we had a friend, Laura, who, when she found out we were going to Peru, she goes, "Oh, you have to connect with my brother." So we connected with her brother, and he took us all around Lima. And, we went to some ruins, we went to the city, we went to some really great restaurants. So as we move on, so we know that you've been traveling. Now, what I want to do is you were a teenager, went back to school for a little bit, but then take us into Litibu Collective. Like, how did that come to fruition, and what sparked your passion for embarking on this inspirational journey?
So when I first started traveling, I suggested to do blogs or vlogs, and I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I felt like I wanted to enjoy the moment, and in order for me to vlog something, I would have to remove myself from that moment. And I didn't want to do that to myself. And then for me to blog something, I felt like I couldn't do an adequate job. I could just tell people where I went that day or what I recommend. I could have done that. But I actually don't think I really feel the fuller effect of my experience until 3 years later. Like I don't really know the meaning of it until 3 years later, in hindsight.
Okay.
And it seems like 3 years is the mark for me. And that amount actually has gotten shorter, but it was 3 years for a long time. So I didn't feel like I could do a really sufficient job that I would be satisfied with.
I see.
Tying the meaning to beyond just my travel itinerary or what my recommendations. So I didn't do blogs or vlogs. I had this idea of doing Litibu in 2011, but I never did it. And the reason why I thought of it is because I just felt like I got to have these experiences, and I got to have these experiences because I wasn't working a regular job. I didn't have kids. I didn't have parents I needed to take care of. So I had that luxury. Not everybody has that luxury. And I realized that, but I didn't want to share my experience as much as I want other people to have their own as much as they could when they can't leave home. And so I had this idea in 2011 in my head, and I didn't pursue it.
Oh.
Because I was still traveling a lot.
Okay.
And I didn't prioritize creating it because I was just like living my life. And then when the pandemic happened and we were all in quarantine is when I started doing it. It's because I think that we had the rare opportunity in life where everything was cleared off our plates, and we had to be mindful of what we put back on and how we put it back on. And this is what I wanted to put on my plate. And the reason for that is during the last few years, I felt like the American landscape was very politically and socially divisive. And my heart, my head could understand it, but my heart couldn't reconcile that. Didn't want to accept it, couldn't accept it, couldn't make sense of it. My heart couldn't understand why people are so mean. When I'm on social media, and sometimes I you see something lighthearted and humorous, and I flip into the comment section, and I'm like, how do you criticize that? How do you be condescending towards that? It's so lighthearted.
Yeah.
People find a way to be mean, and I'm just like, oh my God, okay, I'm gonna retreat. But it's such a bummer. I thought all I can do is be more loving. I did this practice where when I thought of how all I'm going to do is be more loving, I was actually on a flight. And so I was sitting on the plane, and that everybody I could see in their seats, I focused on them, and I just felt like they were my brother or my sister.
Wow.
And I did that with everybody until I did it with everybody I could see, and my heart felt really full. And I just was more mindful of being more loving as, day after day throughout those years. But then I felt like my reach is just my direct reach. So how do I expand that? How do I make the world a little more gentle to each other? And this was my way of doing that. So it is a subscription. Litibu Collective is a subscription box. It does come in a box. There's cultural ingredients in a box. There's recipes in a box, but it's more than just a subscription box. So that's why I'm uncomfortable calling it a subscription box, even though it's really descriptive and it helps people understand. Because beyond that, there's cultural content that gets sent to the subscriber.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of meaning in that too, because I believe that familiarity will increase understanding, and that will foster compassion. And I think that it's really important to be compassionate. We're so similar, humans, we're just so similar. We all feel joy and happiness. We all grieve, and we all know what that looks like. Beyond language barrier, cultural barrier, we all know what this human experience is like. We all know that we desire acceptance, that we all experience death.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about the box because it arrived for me. I received a sampler, and oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. So let me share my experience with how I feel for you.
Thank you.
What it's like to receive something like this. And I open it up, and there's this beautiful drawing with a tree, and it looks like a moon, and then there's dolphins, and just incredibly artistic box. And as I open it up, first I get a handwritten thank you. And that's so personal. But looking in the box, there's all these amazing ingredients. And, there's tamarind, there's some spices, some gourmet coffee. Let's see, we got Vietnamese rice noodles and even a coffee strainer, and then these amazing recipes like the I'm choked up right now, honestly, because I'm looking at Litibu Collective and I'm like looking at the picture of Fa and I'm like, wow, that is just so beautiful. It's frameable,
Oh,
and then
thank
I turn it
you.
over. Yeah. And I look at the ingredients and, it's really well written. It's really well structured, tells me how long it's going to take to cook. And it's an inspirational piece for me as a cook or a wannabe cook to make this dish and to connect to this culture. And that's just the beginning, right? As you're talking about, because there's music involved, there's history involved. It's like I feel like I can connect to the Vietnamese culture and understand it a lot more. And I really feel like you hand chose these recipes to go
Yeah.
along with this package. And I just wanted to share that because I was really, really impressed.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your excitement because,
Hmm.
I do this and I don't know how it's received
Right.
all the time because people get it, but they get it so far away from me. So what I'm hearing is like days later, weeks later, months later. So it's not immediate like yours is. So thank you so much for sharing.
And I want to welcome Paige. She's a constant listener to both Voice4Chefs and our Food is Religion house, and she's a huge supporter. And
Hi,
we just
Paige.
love you, Paige. So feel free to drop something in the chat. But yeah, just excited that you're here. This is a really special time here with Diem because she's the founder of Litibu Collective, and she's created this incredible immersive experience both in cuisine and culture. And she has these packages that come to you. And I was just saying that they're they're wrapped in, or they're delivered in a very artistic box itself. I remember seeing one of her unboxings. The box itself, you can fold it and it becomes artwork. And that was genius, Jim.
Thank you. It's just because I don't
Genius.
like waste.
Yeah.
To be reusable, I want it to represent something more than just a corrugated box. And so I want people an artist of the culture to be able to create whatever they want to represent that culture.
And page two, just so you know, they come with recipes and ingredients. I mean, full ingredients. There's coffee, there's spices, there's noodles, everything that you need to make a series of recipes. Right now, she delivered a sample to me from Vietnam, and there's tamarind shrimp, Vietnamese sour soup, milk or Vietnamese condensed milk iced coffee, and chicken pho. And I'm excited because I want to make pho. I've never made pho before, and there's this beautiful recipe that
Yeah.
is so inspirational. So I wanted to share that with you, Paige. Diem Nguyen is the founder of Litibu Collective, which is this incredible culinary, cultural, and artistic journey that I'm just amazed by because she includes history and music and in the package along with cuisine and some other things as well. So it's a subscription service and just brilliant. So
Yeah.
what is it that for you, what drives your creative process and what elements or influences inspire your work?
I think that for me, I live in a very emotional place,
Okay.
as I like being there. I like it because
Okay.
I think the things are really rich there. So I think about like things that touches the person or like enrich like a connection. And so that's for the cultural content portion. That's why I have music, I have films,
Mm-hmm.
um, I have history and food producers. And so it's an introduction to all those things. So it takes a subscriber beyond food, just food, because it creates a connection. Like one of the content is about how fish sauce is produced and the hard
Okay.
work that goes into producing fish sauce. So one of the ingredients you get in the box is fish sauce. But
Mm-hmm.
then when you have like knowledge of how fish sauce is produced, you appreciate it more. So
Oh,
that's my
it's
hope.
wonderful. I love it. And tell us because this is so special. I mean, the artwork is just incredible.
So the artwork, I did a focus group and I wanted to see what culture and cuisine were people were interested in. And Vietnam happened to be one of the tops. And I'm Vietnamese, so I'm like, I'm going to start with what I know. And that way I could understand how people are receiving it better and like what I could offer. And so I actually used my brother. He is very artistic.
I
And
love it.
he's that's my brother. And the paragraphs inside is of him telling how my mom told him the story. So that's my brother.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom used to tell the story of Chú Cuội Cùng Trăng, which is like Chú Cuội, Uncle Cuội, and the moon. And so my mom used to tell that story to us as kids.
Well, we got to give a shout out to your brother. What's your brother's name?
HD Nguyen.
Nguyen. Yep.
Instagram's down there because I want people to be able to connect with the artist and the chef. And the chef, so I actually was going to use popular Vietnamese chef recipe. I got her permission to use it. But I actually ended up using my mom instead.
Oh.
So the recipes are from my mom.
Wow.
And it's because I'm like, when else am I going to get to represent my family? Represent my mom, I love her food. And so I thought I'll do it now. And so, that we actually filmed it also.
Oh my gosh.
We filmed it and the filming was all day. And she like carried all this stuff. We actually filmed it in a friend's kitchen who is a chef because, he offered his place. He was really nice. And we actually moved his stove away from the stove area. So then the camera can be behind the stove.
Okay.
So we move the stove towards the end of the counter instead of between the counter. So the camera could be behind the stove. You know how, because usually a stove is against the wall.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's like, anything is movable here. So he just
I love it.
Unplugged the stove and moved it.
The behind the scenes are the best. Sharing behind the scenes. I have what I call on the podcast a green room talk, right? And one of my favorite episodes was very beginning. I interviewed this amazing chef, and she was from La Spiga, which is an Italian restaurant in Seattle. If you haven't been, you have to go.
I have been. It's delicious.
And they're such incredibly nice people. And Sabrina Tinsley is the executive chef and co-owner with Pietro Borghese, who's the general manager. And she locked herself in the bathroom right before the interview. So she was late. And I was like, it's okay. We'll just talk for a little bit. So we had this amazing green room talk, behind the scenes about what happened and everything. And the green room or the behind the scenes, those are the best, absolutely the best conversations that you can have. And sharing those, I think, is really important.
Yeah,
but I love that. Yeah. So it's so interesting. So your mom's involved and your brother's involved. And I mean, that's just so culturally rich.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that.
But the Peruvian one, no, nobody's related to me.
Right. But I should connect you with Erica because Erica is an incredible human being. We connected and I interviewed her on the podcast and I followed her for a long time. And she is a Peruvian culinary food guide.
Oh, that's so neat.
And that's her whole, business. And she creates these culinary tours. So I think that would be a great connect for you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
In case maybe you feel inspired by somebody that she knows. And
I met this man that has a cooking school.
Oh.
So I got a couple recipes from him and I'm supposed to reconnect and see. Because the ingredients that they have in the recipe that they want to use has to be something I can get in the United States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I get that. But it might be a recipe from a chef in Peru that you do a collaboration with or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely understand that. Does it have to be in the US or does it have to be out of Seattle or?
The distributors, the Peruvian ones are mostly in Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know up in Southern California. Yeah.
How do you make these connections? This is, I think,
so
all
much
of us
footwork.
would like to know. But what do you do? Can you walk us through the process a little bit behind the scenes?
Yeah, so the Vietnamese one, I shop at a Vietnamese grocery store. So,
Sure.
and so I'm familiar with where the food comes from there. And I also used to live in Long Beach. And so a lot of food comes into the port of Long Beach. And so I would
Okay.
notice there's a lot of distributors down in that area, Orange County area. So I knew that. The Peruvian one, I know Peruvian ingredients from being in Peru and
Okay.
Peruvian recipes from being there. And I was talking to you about my Peruvian mom. And so
Yeah.
she makes me dinner every day. And so
Oh my
I
gosh.
knew what she would tell me, her husband would tell me what they use for those dishes. So I got to be more familiar with Peruvian ingredients. And then when I came back home, I was on the search of where could I get them.
Hmm.
When I was in Peru, actually, somebody told me, a, a Peruvian told me that there's probably a lot in New Jersey, and that was his guess, and he was right. And I asked him how he knew that. He was like, "My aunt lives in New Jersey, and there's a
Oh
lot
my
of Peruvians
gosh.
there." And so when I came back, I started investigating there, and I found a Latino grocery store. So it wasn't specific. And when I went there, I think he was the owner. So he's Peruvian, and he said that he guessed his from New Jersey because there were a lot more. He talked to me about the shipping costs for him to
Hmm.
get it. He actually offered if I wanted to buy cases, I could buy cases from him. So a lot of footwork, a lot of asking
Wow.
questions, a lot of kindness from strangers, a lot of kindness from strangers.
Oh yeah.
You
I
know,
believe that. Yep. Yep.
yeah, and that's so key. I think when you're traveling, it becomes really evident that we're really lean on each other. You know, as
Hmm.
independent as we try to be, because maybe it feels safer, but we're really, really dependent on one another.
This might be something that you might consider is subscribing to her service, which is absolutely incredible. And you can find out more about Litibu Collective by going to her website. You can also follow her on Instagram as well, which is kind of cool because she does an unboxing, which I just love. I love when you share your passion for this,
Thank you.
through Instagram and through some of your videos, because I think that that's really, really cool. Yeah, I love this behind the scenes. It's the best. It's like learning about how these things come to life, and yeah, I just really enjoy following along in your dream and your idea. So let's see. Is there anyone that you've been mentored by as you're going along in this journey, or anyone you'd like to give a shout out to and express gratitude to?
I'm not on Clubhouse very much. I actually, once you mentioned it, I went back because I haven't been on it since the beginning
Yeah.
of the pandemic. But there's so many people. I was saying the kindness of strangers. We really lean on each other. There's so many people. Everyone, like my brother doing it, my mom doing it.
Hmm.
She was like, "You're making me do this, and you're borrowing my car." I'm like, "Mom, I'm not borrowing your car. You're in the car."
I
And she's
love
like
it.
packed her pot and pans, and just even when I was telling you about the Peruvian owner that
Yeah.
told me where he gets his stuff. Everybody. I don't know his name. He doesn't know my name. I don't even know he remembers me anymore. I remember what he looks like, but I realize there's just everyone, and I do this on my own,
Hmm.
and so I everybody that I get to brainstorm with, you,
Oh yeah. Love it.
your ideas, you celebrating me, you being excited for me,
Hmm.
Paige for being on here. Thank you.
Yeah, Paige is
Everyone.
amazing. She knows that. So she's probably blushing now, but she loves lobster. We have that connection together. So I remember she used to post pictures of lobster on Clubhouse, and yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan of lobster, and she has it cheap on the East Coast. We pay a fortune for it, Paige. I think two lobsters is over $100 to ship to Seattle.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. And I keep every morsel, right? So I make a bisque out of it. I cook off all the shells after we're done. Every single
Oh, you
morsel.
use everything. That's so great.
Everything. Just
You
like
know,
you.
you
Yeah.
know how I feel about waste.
Absolutely. In Seattle, you've been in Seattle for a while. What
Mhm.
5 things would you recommend if you brought a friend or a
Mm.
relative to Seattle?
So I was born and raised out here.
Ah,
Or I was
wow.
born in Tacoma where my mom worked at.
Okay.
My mom worked at St. Joseph Hospital in
Okay.
Tacoma,
Got it.
and that's where I was born. Have they been there before?
No, they've never been there.
The farmers market for sure,
Which
right?
one?
The Pike Place farmers market,
Oh, of
the Pike
course.
Place,
Yeah.
sorry, Park
Pike
Place.
Place
Yeah.
for a salmon bowl.
And I would tell them about the history of it. So I
Okay.
think that sometimes the history doesn't get acknowledged, but they're
Mm-hmm.
from Japanese fishermen, So I would tell them about that history. I think that the space needle is something you have to do.
Yeah.
It might be anticlimactic for some, but I feel like you have to do it because you stare at it all the time and you see it in movies.
That's a good point.
I lived on a float house. I have a paddle board, a stand-up paddle board. And what I used to love doing is sitting on the paddle board at night underneath the moonlight and snacking because I think it's so peaceful. Like the
Okay.
water is glass and you get to see South Lake Union, you get to see Montlake. And I think that part is, for me, is the most beautiful part of Seattle.
Okay.
And I love bike rides at night.
Oh.
And so a bike ride, I would say, a bike ride at night
Where would you
where
go?
I've always been in Northeast Seattle
Okay.
because it's residential and but you're still in the city.
What
I would
cities
go.
would be Northeast Seattle for people that are listening?
Oh, what neighborhood?
Yeah,
Oh,
and of course, since we're global, we've got to say
we have
Seattle,
to.
Washington,
Yes,
right?
Seattle, Washington, and it's by the University of Washington. So there's
Oh, okay.
around the University of Washington. Well, University of Washington is beautiful. Is for people
The
who don't know.
campus, yeah.
The campus is beautiful, and it's around Lake Washington, which is this large lake, and we have bridges going across it to get to other cities that you might heard of, like Bellevue.
But also
Uh,
the mountains, right? And the rivers and
to go
peninsula.
Snoqualmie Mountain, 45 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot.
Mm-hmm. In your travels around the world, you've traveled to different places, been in Europe, you've been in South America and different places. What's your favorite?
Oh, I don't. That's hard. I
I
think
know.
it depends on time. I think the way I would go now, though, I'm 40 this year, and so I would go to Vietnam. I haven't been in a long time, and I think that is ancestral land. Like I need to go and explore that, pay homage to that.
Yeah, you have to meet our dear friend Chef Mimi, who's the co-founder of Food is Religion. And she's been a friend of mine ever since I joined the club and now the house. And she's from Vietnam and she travels there quite a bit. Or she's Vietnamese and just incredible. I think you guys would really click. Yeah, I'll send an intro, but yeah, she's just incredible. She is the heart and soul of Food is Religion. I was just thinking about that.
Thank you for seeing this. I appreciate this. Thank you for brainstorming, thinking
It's
of me
fun.
and the connections that you think about making for me. Thank you.
Well, you have a really incredible idea that needs to be shared. What about where you've traveled? Is there any particular dish that you just crave? So you're in Houston now, but anywhere in the world.
That I crave. Not just now, anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world that you've been.
Oh, I'm so capricious.
Yeah.
Right now, I would want like a pasta with squid ink. That's what I would want right now.
Oh, squid ink. Okay.
Yeah, this is what I would want now in this moment.
Why squid ink? I've never had it. I've always wanted to try it, but I just haven't.
I actually really like making pasta with things that are unexpected because pasta is so comforting. It's a lot of carbs, right? So, and cheese, a lot of time cheese. But for example, my mom makes her tomato sauce spaghetti with oyster sauce.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it creates a different, like a depth, like an umami flavor.
Umami,
it's
yeah.
really good. You should try it.
Okay, so as we wrap up, do you have any special message that you'd like to share with Clubhouse, Voice4Chefs podcast in the world?
I just want to thank you for everyone for being really supportive and sharing their thoughts, whether positive or negative. Because I'm doing this alone, but I'm not alone, And so I really appreciate people's feedback and support. And so I hope that people understand that whole experience. I want people to be able to experience a culture with all their senses, including with their heart.
I love that. Again, you touched on the artist, the creative chef, the cook, the culture. A lot of pieces come into this. It's like you said, it's not just a box. Yeah, I would say it's not just a box, it's an experience.
Yeah, it's an experience. It's a subscription experience.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Okay, so as we wrap up, I just want everybody to know that we do have a weekly talk show. So if you're listening, join us every Sunday. It'll be posted in our house. You can join us every Sunday. We also have weekly rooms where we talk about anything related to food and culture, I would say. And there are amazing hosts and moderators that will really captivate you with conversation. I thank everybody for listening, especially Paige for staying on with us. And Diem, thank you so much for spending the time with us and sharing your journey and your passion and purpose. It's really incredible. And
thank you for having me.
The last thing I want to say is if anyone's interested in partnering with Diem, reach out. Her email is here, and you can reach her at Diem, Diem, at LitibuCollective.com.
Thanks for joining us today. Follow us on Facebook. Find our website in the show notes. Subscribe on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen. Leave a comment with 5 stars, and stay tuned for the next episode of Voice4Chefs.